Contrary to what a lot of people think, there's a difference between good debt and bad debt. And yes, good debt does actually exist in reality, in the real world. And let me explain exactly how you can utilize good debt to become wealthy and make yourself a millionaire. So welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Billy Butler. I'm a licensed realtor. I'm a real estate investor. I run a vacation rental management company with dozens of properties under management in this area. So let's get a little bit more into the idea of leverage, right? When it comes to debt, how you can utilize debt in order to become wealthy. And there's also bad debt too. We have to identify what's considered bad debt. So it depends on what different ideas you listen to. There's the Dave Ramsey approach, which is that all debt is bad, and that's not necessarily all true. It's true for most people. But then there's the Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the idea of using debt to buy assets like businesses and real estate, and then essentially arbitraging that debt so that you can create cash flow and build wealth through an amortization schedule where you're paying down the principal of the loan over time while also making a little bit of money on top of that in profit every single month. And that's the beauty of using leverage or using debt for real estate and for businesses versus something that's really bad like credit card debt. First, let's identify the difference between good debt and bad debt, because you have to understand the bad before we get to the good. Bad debt is anything that is a very high interest rate, like over 10%, that's considered consumer debt. Consumer debt is something like your credit cards, your student loans, and your car payments. So all of those things are basically taking money out of your income every single month, and you're throwing it away to pay off the debt and the high interest. So that's not really gaining you anything. You're actually losing income over time, and you're losing investment potential by holding on to bad debt at high interest rates. So how do we get out of bad debt? There's something that Dave Ramsey has, or it's a strategy that Dave Ramsey has came up with and his team. It's called the debt snowball. What this means is you start by paying off and clearing away the debt with the highest interest rates first. So if you have a credit card at 20 to 25%, you have student loans at maybe 10%, and you have car payment at maybe, let's say less than 10%, maybe you're at 8% for the car payment. So you start by knocking down that credit card debt first. You pay that off as fast as you can, and then you snowball that down. And what actually ends up happening is by paying off that higher interest debt first, you're going to actually have a lot more leeway going down that snowball. And that's why they call it the snowball, because you're essentially picking up momentum as you get the highest interest debt paid off first, because that's the biggest burden to your monthly income. That's going to go down first, and then it's going to become a lot easier to knock out the other debts down the line that have a lower rate. Once you get down to having zero consumer debt, it's actually going to benefit you a lot, because you're going to have a higher credit score, you're going to have more income disposable, you're going to be able to save more money and essentially invest that saved money into good debt with real estate or with growing your own business. Ideally, what everybody should be trying to do is buy a rental property. Not one that you're going to live in, but one that you are going to rent out to a tenant. The reason that you should do this is because you're going to have to take on debt in order to buy this property. And if you hold on to the property long enough, depending on, it really doesn't matter what the market does. If you hold on to that property for 10 years or more, it's going to be paid off slowly but surely over time, what's called an amortization schedule. So it's going to amortize, you're going to pay down that principal on the loan, which is going to build you equity. It's like a forced savings by paying down on the principal, and you can arbitrage the mortgage payment. Now, this is the single most important aspect to understanding good debt. There's always an element of arbitrage at play. What I mean by that is, let's say you have an interest rate at maybe 5%, and let's just pretend it's interest only for right now. If you borrow $100,000 to buy a property at 5% interest only, that's $5,000 per year. And then let's say, you have your property taxes, insurance, all that kind of other stuff, some maintenance involved. So let's say there's another $5,000 a year. And again, this is just fake numbers. No property is going to be exactly like this, and there's no $100,000 properties anymore. So let's just, for the sake of example, you buy a $100,000 property at 5% interest only, and then let's say there's another $5,000 of expenses every single year, bringing your total expenses on the property, the cost of ownership, to $10,000 per year. But you know that you can rent that property out for $1,000 a month. So that means that that's 12 times 1,000. That's $12,000 in gross rents that you're going to be able to collect on that property. And your expenses on the property are only $10,000 a year. So right there, you're making $2,000 every single year. And that is the base example for what I consider to be debt arbitrage. And it's good debt because it's on an asset that is going to be going up in value over time. If the market goes up, which is about an average of 3% every single year, after the 30-year period when that loan is finally paid off, that property is going to have no debt and it's going to have doubled in value by that point. So you've built yourself a larger net worth by owning that property, and it paid you $2,000 or more every single year. And that is how you want to look at things when you're considering getting into debt. You can have millions of dollars in debt, but as long as you have a little bit of equity insulated and cash flow coming from it, you're making some profit, and you run the numbers and everything looks good, then there's really no major risks other than maybe the market crashes. But if you're holding on long enough and your plan is long term and you're not just trying to buy a property for 2 years, flip it, and then move on to the next one, that's not necessarily the best strategy for long-term wealth building. You want to have the long-term, the long game in mind, and being able to arbitrage the debt by running the numbers and understanding the market that you're going to be purchasing that property in. Then you're going to be totally set and essentially building your wealth over time, becoming very, very wealthy. And that's what we would consider good debt. It's on an asset that's producing income, that it's going up, it's appreciating in value over time. So I want to give an example of good debt for a business asset in case you're more interested in launching a business and not really interested in buying real estate right now. So let's say, for example's sake, you're a filmmaker or a video producer, content producer, and you need to get equipment so you can produce content for your clients. Your service is really important. You want your service to have good quality. So what do you need? You need a bunch of equipment. You need a new camera, lenses, sound equipment, lighting, all that kind of good stuff. So your total budget is $10,000. Let's just round it to a nice even number. You need 10 grand to go buy all this equipment so you can provide the best service as possible for your clients. So you go to a friend or family member, somebody who has the 10 grand, and you say, let's do a promissory note. A promissory note means it's just a loan agreement where you have everything lined up in your loan agreement, so you know who's getting paid what and what the schedule is, all that kind of good stuff. You create a promissory note with them, and they lend you the $10,000. Now let's say, to make it nice and even, that it's a 12% interest rate, meaning that you're paying 1% per monthly payment, right? So 12% divided by 12% per year divided by the 12 months is 1%. 1% of $10,000 is $100. So you're paying $100 in interest. And then let's say there's a 20-month amortization schedule. So 20 months divided by the principal of the loan, which is going to be $10,000. You divide that by the 20 months, and that gets you to $500 a month. Then you're at $500 plus the $100 in interest. That means that you have to owe, or you have to pay every single month to your lender $600. So now you go out there and you start making these projects. You buy all your equipment, you get everything ready to go, and you start calling up people. Hey, I'm making videos for people. You go out and you make your cold calls, you make your cold emails, whatever you got to do to get your clients. And let's say you get one client per month, and let's say you're charging $5,000 per video, but you're going to need, let's say, $2,400 of that to go towards the actual budget of making that video itself. So $2,400 goes out the window to the budget of the project, and then $600 is going to go towards your payment for all the equipment that you need. That leaves you with a $2,000 profit. You're paying yourself $2,000 every single month. Now if you get another gig, let's say it's another $5,000, in that same month. You don't have to pay $600 unless you really want to, and you can pay off that loan faster. But now you can pretty much pocket the $2,600 that you would have pocketed on the other projects, because now you've already paid that $600 off to your lender. So that's just one example of how you could leverage a business. You could take debt on a business and have cash flow and scale it over time. Use debt strategically. Don't get into bad debt and start looking at getting into good debt. Try to find ways to arbitrage it. Try to find ways to better yourself and grow your wealth, whether that be through a business or through owning real estate, okay? That's all I have for you guys today. If you enjoyed the video, if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. I appreciate your time. Please consider hitting the subscribe button, like the video to help the YouTube algorithm, and I'll see you guys on the next one.